Baseball is going to try and begin its way back. Owners and players will negotiate tomorrow. There's a plan already approved by the owners. Jim Duquette's a longtime executive and now a broadcaster, and he joins us now. Jim, welcome. How are you?
Hey, Mike. How are you? Good to talk to you.
Thank you. Before I get through the plan itself, I got to figure. Now, you've lived through this forever.
Yeah.
I got to figure the better angels, they're not going to squabble. In this day and age, they're not going to squabble publicly about money. They can't, right?
I would have said that about 3 weeks ago, Mike, that I would have said the same thing. There's no way that billionaires and millionaires are going to squabble.
Not in this country right now.
I can't imagine. I cannot imagine that this is going to happen. But right now, they are poised for a fight, both sides. It sounds like
the players are really poised for a fight. Now, could they possibly... Do they understand? Now, listen, you've dealt with a million players. You've dealt with owners. I know owners and players. I understand that when it comes to real life, they sometimes don't have a great grasp. They're very spoiled. Right. They're very rich. But even they have to understand what that looks like.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. Listen, I think that, and that, here's the thing. I'm sure you've talked about it. The umpires have already taken a 30% pay cut across the board.
Yep.
Executives with
everybody has.
Everyone, right?
Yes.
And so they're the only ones that haven't yet. The draft, they're reducing the drafts, to only 5 rounds. So they're the last group that hasn't done anything. They thought, and I understand at least somewhat of a point that when it was first negotiated, they got service time.
Right.
They weren't going to get paid. All right. They thought this was going to happen, but it's pretty clear that it was going to be renegotiated in some capacity. So they're going to have to come to some understanding. But I tell you, I've talked to some high-end agents who represent like the big-time players in the sport, and this was like a week and a half ago, dead set on taking any more cut payroll financially. Which, if that's the case, the owners, they're not going to start the season.
No way. One owner said to me, under that scenario, I would lose $150,000 a week. He said, "You think I'm opening my doors and losing $150,000 a week?"
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense. And it just, that's where they have to, the revenue sharing to me makes some sense if they can come to that conclusion.
Right. How about splitting the revenue down the middle? I mean, whatever revenue there is.
Exactly right. Split it down the middle. To me, that's the fairest. There's a lot of distrust right now between both sides, and that, mostly on the player side. I think that.
Is there an owner that plays, you know this better than I. Is there an owner that plays the peacemaker in this? Is there a guy who is the consensus maker who can play the peacemaker in this?
Boy, that's a good question. There are some guys. The Monfort and Rockies has been one of those guys. It's been like the president of the Dodgers there, Stan Kasten. I know you've spoken.
Yeah, sure.
Before.
No, Stan well. Yeah.
Yeah. So guys like that have been around for a long, long time that I think are trying to insert themselves. By the way, there are high-end agents that are trying to do the same thing. I don't want to say behind the back of the Tony Clark, the union head, but they are trying to get involved. In some cases, I think it's going on without their knowledge.
I know they've been itching for. I know the players' side's been itching for a fight for a couple of years. I understand that, but you know what? The way the world is right now, this isn't the time.
That's not the time. You're absolutely right, and that's the part of it that I think like you said, there are a lot of delusional players. Now, they're trying to say, well, we're going to take the big risk, which they are. They're taking a risk if they're going to go out there and play and put their lives on the line. Right? We can't deny that.
No, I understand that.
But under these circumstances, I just cannot imagine that they would not make some alteration to their salary.
I'm going to believe the better angels are going to be there. I'll be shocked. I won't be shocked because I've seen enough manifestations of unbelievable greed in my life in sports that I wouldn't be shocked. But it would almost amaze me because the climate of the country is that they're going to tell both sides to go stick it. I mean, the way the country is right now. Let me get to you. We're talking with Jim Duquette on the plans, okay?
Yep.
No fans.
Right.
DH both leagues, this is an easy way for them to finally get where they want to get to anyway, right? Is get the DH both leagues. They can just slip that in. Mm-hmm. Spring training, play July 4th. What do you think about configuration of roster as someone who knows this? I mean, Bobby V said to me, at least 18 pitches. You see that many? Do you think it's 18, 20 pitches on the roster?
Yeah, I think. Well, see, the factor you have to bring in is also not only okay, a little bit of a shortened spring, right? They've talked about that, but let's say you have 3 or 4 pitchers, they all like to hang out together. What if 3 or 4 of them come down with the virus and have to be quarantined?
Oh my God!
And so now you're really in trouble, and we don't have any guidance on that part of it too. But you have to almost plan for that as well.
And a lot of your top minor league arms are probably going to be on the roster, right? They'll probably be on the major league roster. And also, what would you do if you had a jewel? What would you do if you had a great player who you knew you were going to sneak in the minors for a couple of months before you bring him up? Would he be in the majors this year, or would he not be in the majors this year?
No, I'm carrying them. See, with the shortened season, for me, I'd carry those guys. And you're going to have a travel squad of some kind.
Right.
To keep those guys sharp, you're going to have inter-squad games. I don't want them sitting at home,
right?
Not getting reps, either pitching or hitting. I want them. So I'm bringing them. And if I can insert them into, and they can be a part of a pennant race, absolutely, I would bring them up and not even worry about the service time at this point.
All right. 82 game season. What the plan I heard, tell me if it's different, is if you play American League East, then you only play National League East. You don't play any of the divisions, so you don't travel too much. You play a lot of American League East, then you play a little National League East. 14 playoff teams, 7 in each league, so we have extra wild cards, and we'll play in the hot weather for the playoffs. When you look at this, is 82 enough for you? Is that make it a real season in your mind?
No, it's not for me. I don't like that part of it either. The thing that I was surprised at was, and I get what they're trying to do, and it's hard to predict out. It's they say, okay, well, there may be a reoccurrence of the virus in November. Geez, we might have that in August. We don't know.
Could happen anytime. We don't know.
So they don't want to have the extended postseason World Series in November with Okay, all right. So I get that, but all of this talk about the finances for me, kind of go back to, okay, if you play 82 games, we know you get your regular salary. When you get to the postseason, all that money is shared again, right? So the owners aren't paying out of their pocket. They're not paying the salaries. So I have this, in my mind saying, wait a minute, financially it makes more sense for the owners to have a shorter season and less number of games. Is that the reason why they're agreeing to?
Well, I got to figure the one thing the players are going to have to get here is they're going to have to get at least a share of that postseason revenue, right? At least a taste of that, at least something of that postseason revenue.
That's where Major League Baseball is kind of pointing towards. All right, let's have an expanded postseason. They've talked about the projected revenues. Absolutely, that's where it would make more sense. For the players, would be half of that revenue as well. And I think they already are getting a big portion of it in the postseason, but they're going to have to get at least half. And I think that part of it would be fairer for them. But I'm not a big 82-game guy. I'd like to see at least 100, a greater percentage of the season. I mean, I don't know about you, but all right, Mets. All right, the Mets have to play a tough NL East. Then they got to go into the American League East and play them. The Centrals match up. And it's not quite as strong in the Central,
right?
And I don't think it's as strong in the.
Oh, I agree.
In the West,
I agree.
So it's a huge disadvantage for teams like the Mets, I think.
I agree. We're talking about Jim Duquette. Jim, what does this do though to the minor leagues? And look at it from a standpoint, not only the viability of the minor leagues economically, but what about your team? If you're a general manager and you're thinking about your minor league system, I mean, what kind of shape is your minor league system in?
Well, this is like a terrible year. If you have a strong system, you're hoping that a full year, it benefits you, and you're pushing guys through the system. It delays it by at least 6 months, and maybe more, because you just can't get the reps. And I think they're going to try to have. We had this, instructional league, right? We called it in October, November. Right. All our top prospects would go to Florida. They're going to try to do something similar to that in each spring training site and make it a longer and extended one. They'll do the best they can with it, but if there's any quality prospect that's AA or above, I would carry him with the major league team, and that to me would be the best way.
That's what I was asking for. So if you have a good kid, you want him to be with the big club. You don't want him sitting home doing nothing all year, and you don't want his development to be slowed. You want to take. So if you have a Mickey Mantle type or a Trout type, you don't want him doing nothing. You're going to bring him up early.
Yeah, that's right. And, Yankees have D.B. Garcia, right? And pitcher like that. You don't have to have him active for every part of the regular season, at least according to what I know of the rules. So bring him up. He's part of a taxi squad.
Right.
You have him pitch, and when you have a doubleheader or when you need him, that sort of thing, and he gets service time. He's around your major league club. It's almost like a spring training environment for him, but better than that because it's a regular season. He gets on the job training. And it's not a lost season for him.
How does service time work this year? As a full year? I mean, that's got to be negotiated too, right?
That's going to have to be negotiated.
That's a tricky one. They're going to have to put that off into the off season. I mean, that one could take them weeks.
They got a lot of hurdles to overcome.
They really do. That one is very tricky one. I mean, think about and that impacts a lot of players. It really does.
It does. Listen, they wanted service time was so important for them. That's the one thing they wanted, right? When they negotiated this back in March. So that's going to be a fight, too. Once they get through the finances, they're going to have to figure out, does 82 games constitute a full season? There's no way, in my mind, that would happen.
Oh, listen, it's crazy. It really is. We're talking with Jim Duquette. Do you feel 4 weeks, 3 weeks is enough? I mean, what do you think it takes a team to get their players, especially their pitchers, in shape? Do you think if they get in the first week in June, they're ready by the 4th of July?
Yeah, I think so. I've talked to enough teams, coaches. These guys are having a hard time, staying in tip-top shape. Obviously, some pitchers are throwing into nets. I mean, they don't have a throwing partner, so they're throwing. I mean, it's like what you do with your son in your backyard. Okay,
gotcha.
I can't catch you. Throw into the net. That's what major leaguers are doing, right?
Unbelievable.
It's incredible. But I do think that because of the expanded roster, you don't have to have a full month. You could do 2.5 to 3, probably 3 weeks is going to be the sweet spot for a spring training. Players were told to plan on 12 to 15 games as a second spring training before they're going to be ready, before they would start the season. And I think you're going to have your starting pitchers limited in how many pitches they throw right at the onset.
And if you're a bad team, a really, a brutal bad team, I mean, how do you handle this season? What would you do differently, if anything, if you're the Orioles, if you're one of these 100-loss teams that's still a couple of years away of making the bounce back? What do you do with this kind of year? Do you treat it any differently, or do you just treat it like you would have anyway?
I think you treat it the same. You brought in some veteran guys, hopefully on minor league good contracts. You bring them up as well. You keep. You may have, like the Orioles, I just know a little bit better. They have some guys at AAA. You may give them an opportunity at some point during the course of the season, like you were going to do anyway. Maybe you play them up for the whole year. There are times where you're like, oh, geez, I want to be careful with their innings pitched this year. Well, you don't have to really worry about that now. You're bringing them up in June or July.
Somebody said he thought there'd be a lot more arm trouble. You agree with that? I mean, someone said, watch, there's going to be a lot more Tommy John, a lot more arm trouble. That's easy to say, but why is that? You think that will be the case?
Well, I saw one of the doctors say that to be careful. When we had the shortened season, if you go back to 95, that's the only season that we have to kind of compare the 144 games, 3.5 weeks of spring training. We didn't have any more abnormal arm injuries that year than we did others. I think teams will be careful, in how much they extend them. That's why the expanded roster will be there. So you might have a slight uptick in it, but I don't think we'll have more than normal.
How about a couple of things? We're talking about Jim Duquette. Number one, the players playing in empty stadiums. How hard do you think do you think that's a big adjustment, or you don't think it's that big adjustment?
It's a lot of it depends on who you talk to. I've had both sides of it. So, a couple of players are like, man, I don't know how I'm going to do it. Then there's others that were like, geez, we did that one in the
Tampa,
minors.
Or they did it. You play in Tampa in front of 5,000 every night, or or you get in a September game once in a while where there's nobody there. But this is really nobody there.
Nobody there, right? And I think that's a little bit different. Once you get through the early part of it, the novelty will wear off. It is going to be difficult.
They're even talking about the players sitting in the stands.
That's right. And now, there have been talk. I saw Randy Levine, of course, the Yankees talk about eventually having fans.
Oh, of course they do. Yeah, they're thinking about money.
Yeah, that's pretty overly optimistic in my mind. Right?
Oh, yeah, very optimistic. I think that's very optimistic right now. I think Spectator Sports might be one of the last things back. I think that, I think we're going to have some kind of the therapeutic before we have Spectator Sports. So I think, this is for TV. We know that.
That's right.
The other part, you're a broadcaster now. How about doing games off TV? Have you ever done a game off of television?
Yeah, it's actually it's okay. It's not what you're used to, but it is a little bit. It's easier than you would expect. And you've seen ESPN do it now with the Korean League. and you can definitely do it.
I've talked to a lot of play-by-play guys. I've never been a play-by-play guy, first of all. I've never in my life. I've always been a talk show host. But I've talked to guys who have done it for different sports. They've done it for different international games. They've done it for different playoff games. They say they can do it. They all. I haven't had one guy say they couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's different, but you can definitely do it. And the one thing that you normally don't have in that type of thing is you don't have the fans. But you're not going to have fans anyway, so that part of it won't be that big of a deal. So I think that's a good way to keep the traveling parties a lot tighter. Hopefully they're going to use that as an option.
Do you think form will hold? Do you think you'll get the same teams we would have got over 162 games, over 82 games?
I think that's going to be fascinating to watch because I think the really good teams, Yankees, Dodgers, they won't have any problems. But I do think you're going to have a surprise team or two that's going to be in the mix.
Just get off to a fast start, and just get on a roll.
Like the White Sox, they're a team that over 162, they're not good enough yet this year. They were good, but they're not going to be good enough this year with 82. Yeah, they have a chance. So I think those teams like the White Sox, I would watch carefully.
Do you think it helps teams with pitching or teams that are sluggers?
I think more pitching than anything. It's just like the normal one. I think that if you have extra starters, then like the Mets before Syndergaard, they had 6, 7 starters. You go, okay, they're going to have an advantage. They'll still have a little bit of an advantage. I think Cespedes being able to play as a DH will help them. I think the Yankees with their depth, they should with Paxton coming back, likely healthy now. The extra break should help him. Teams like that, I think, will have an advantage overall, even though the season will be 82 games.
My diehard baseball friends and National League fans who have always told me they would never in their life live in a world where there was a DH. Yeah. I've always told them economically they would live to see the DH in every team because it was never going away, which we knew, okay? Right. And more, the new owners became accustomed to it, and the guys in the National League, the Gussie Bushes of the world, and the Ruley Carpenters died off. So they left. In your mind, as someone who still knows all those people, will there be anybody who really is going to be out in the hall screaming and yelling, or is there no one left who now is that kind of NL purist?
I think there's less objection. There's still a few of them, but they're far and few between. I think if they see it this year and it works, which I think it will, then I think it may not be next year.
They've always been phonies anyway. They even use it to their advantage in the minor leagues, and they use it in spring training. So they've been phonies about it anyway.
They really are. And on top of that, it used to be. Listen, the DHs used to make a lot of money, right? And it used to be. I mean, they were like one of the highest paid guys. Well, now they've controlled the payroll enough where they're not parking a ton of money into the DH anymore.
Well, think about go back to the days that if you went back to the days when I was a kid.
Yeah.
The DH would have been perfect for Mickey Mantle. It would have been perfect for guys like that. He couldn't run anymore. He could still hit, and you could fill ballparks. That kind of keeping that kind of star around for 3 or 4 more years is a big deal. I mean, because it helps keep big stars in the game.
It is, and financially, I think they've done a better job of mitigating that and not, it used to be, the American League teams, they always outbid the National League teams for the because they've got the DH, right? The Pujols and the Canoes are signing until they're, in their 40s. National League teams would never do that, right? Well, now these teams are not signing them into their 40s anymore. So
that day's gone, yes. And a lot of teams are using the DH now more as a way station anyway. They really are. They use
They're rotating it around, like you said.
There's a lot fewer big poppies around now. They've used it, and a lot of times use it for your hitting catches like a Sanchez uses it a lot. That kind of thing,
That's right. Well, the Nelson Cruzes, right, with the Twins.
Yes.
Like he may be one of the last DHs as we know it. And Pujols, he'll have obviously he's benefited from it, but guys like that be able to prolong their career, I think I'm all for it. Certainly in the National League, this would be a huge break for the Mets. Let's be honest. Cespedes being able to play and stay off his feet.
This is a big deal for Cespedes. He could hit a lot, and he doesn't have to go out there. Absolutely. That's a big plus. We're talking with Jim Duquette. So use your expertise. Do you think they get through this and they get an agreement, or do you think it becomes Armageddon?
I think that luckily there are still people that remember the '94 season and how ridiculous that was, calling off the World Series And even though that both sides are not seeing eye to eye, and there's a lot of distrust there, I still think that cooler heads will prevail in this. There's too much.
All they have to do is look and see what the unemployment look is. That's 30% of the country's unemployed.
Like, come on, seriously. That part of it, and nobody wants, there's no player out there that wants to sit for a whole year and not collect a paycheck, and there's no owner, that wouldn't like to collect that TV revenue.
Absolutely, and you know what? Plus, you also do a service to the country. They want you back. I mean,
that's the last part.
Yeah, I mean, you would think have a little civic pride where you realize the fans want you to play. They want to watch you play.
Yeah, you could be the only game in town for a while.
Absolutely,
which wouldn't be the worst thing.
No, it's a positive. The ratings will be enormous. The ratings will be. The ratings will be. I mean, think about it. If we had a ball game tonight, how you think any of us are going to miss it? I mean, my God, I haven't seen a game in 2 months.
No, right. That's exactly right. I think in the chance to look forward to something every single day.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt that part of it is, I think, important for the country.
So, give me one last thing. You mentioned the White Sox. Give me another team you think could be a bit of a surprise in this scenario this year.
A team like the Texas Rangers are, they parked some money in their rotation. Arizona Diamondbacks, with Madison Bumgarner. I'd say those are the three teams for me that kind of stand out. Of the ones that are like, okay, they were kind of on the border. Diamondbacks, not that they're going to beat the Dodgers, but they can get into the postseason and have a pretty good pitching staff. Some people have suggested the Padres. I'm not ready to anoint them. They haven't won anything. They have some good young talent.
Something always goes wrong there.
Always
Absolutely.
something, right?
Absolutely.
I'm not convinced of that.
What would you do if you're the Mets? Would you keep guys like with no Syndergaard? Would you keep Lugo in the pen, or would you put Lugo in the rotation?
That's a good one. I really think I think Waka. Hopefully Waka can stay healthy. When he's healthy, he's a really good pitcher.
Right.
I mean, you've seen him.
He's a very good pitcher. Yes.
So, and I think Porcello with the Mets is going to be really good.
He'll be a good innings eater for him. He'll be a good innings eater for him. Yes.
Here's what I would do with Lugo. I would look at him as a one of those spot starters. You need a doubleheader, a starter for a doubleheader. Let him get a start and go that route but that's provided.
Are you a believer in Diaz coming?
Pitch better.
Well, let me. I think Betances will be a huge find for them this year. Yeah. Do you think? I don't think Diaz will be good. I think he's a guy who I don't think it was anything except that he couldn't handle the pressure last year. I think he will fail again here. I could be in the minority, but I've been on the record, and a lot of people think no, he's going to bounce back. Are you in the camp of him bouncing back, or are you in the camp of him struggling?
Yeah, here's the thing. He was tipping his pitches so much last year that I think it'll be better now that he had a year away. But I'm not as optimistic about Familia. I know the team is, but I'm not. I think Betances and Diaz have bounce back years, and I think Familia struggles.
All right. Listen, thanks very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Jim.
Nice to talk to you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jim Duquette.